Hey folks, welcome to VerifiedInvesting.com. My name is Gareth Soloway, Chief Market Strategist here. In today's video, we're going to isolate down, does M2 money supply dictate the major highs in the NASDAQ? And that again is the big question, meaning that ultimately, can we see a correlation and potentially dictate when the stock market will top by looking at the M2 money supply? I have some amazing things to show you in this video that honestly, when I found them, they blew my mind, and I hope they do for you as well. So we're going to start by looking at the M2 money supply, right? And what we see here is in March of 2000, which is when the NASDAQ topped, M2 money supply was 4.85 trillion. Now, since then, M2 money supply has dramatically increased, right? Amazing move. You can see right here when it was subtracting or going down, it basically was during the bear market of 2022. It has now gone higher, and we see the stock market at all-time highs. But the question has to be asked, does M2 dictate a market top? Meaning, does M2, when it reaches a certain multiple, dictate the NASDAQ at a top? Today, if it is, or if it does, today could be the top in the NASDAQ. What do I mean by that? Well, what you can see very clearly right here, folks, is that we have 4.85 trillion to 22.5 trillion. That is a multiple of 4.65, meaning if you multiply 4.85 times 4.65, you get 22.5 trillion. All right. And again, that was the dot-com high. Now, if we flip over, remember this number, 4.65 right here. Remember this absolutely. Okay, now if we flip over to the NASDAQ, what was today's high? Today's high on the NASDAQ was 23,788. Now, what if we go to the dot-com high? Let's zoom all the way back out here to the dot-com high in 2000, March of 2000. It was 5,125. That is where the NASDAQ topped. Now, remember that multiple, right? If we compare and we're saying apples is to apples, that means that 5,125 times 4.65, what does that give us? All right. And we're going to do the mathematics right here. And again, let's flip back to the charts and take a look. So if we take 5,125, multiply it by 4.65, what do we get? And the answer, folks, is an astounding, think about this, guys. The answer we get is 23,775. Think about that. All right. Now, if we zoom out on this, what are we seeing? All right. We are basically seeing here that this is what would equate to the dot-com high in regards to the correlation between M2 in 2000, March of 2000, and the dot-com high on the NASDAQ. And technically speaking, the M2 today at 22.5 trillion would give us this number. What was today's high in the NASDAQ? 23,788, basically just 13 points higher. And interestingly enough, the NASDAQ has now pulled back. Look at this. If we look at where the NASDAQ is, we're currently trading. I don't know if you could see this number up here. We're at 23,711. So we've actually pulled back below this number here. And if we go to the daily chart, and I can kind of zoom in on the daily here, let's go into this. You can see that we have come in off of that high. Now, listen, I want to be clear on this. This is just something that I've looked at. You guys know I study charts over and over and over again, and I look to see, is there a correlation between past bubbles in the NASDAQ, and ultimately we look at .com, right? And we say, during the .com era, what was the driving force? Internet, right? And internet was brand new. It was prolific. It was starting to go everywhere, and it was going to change the world. And then you look at the correlation between that, and ultimately we look at AI. And AI is now, I mean, we see data centers popping up and all of the chips and the sales and the ancillary things that AI is impacting. And we know that it's going to change the world and our lives as well. And so I think there's something very interesting here. You have the events in the world, essentially the internet there and AI today. And then you have M2 money supply and the M2 today. So M2 then versus M2 today. And then last of all, we factor in what was the NASDAQ what is the multiple on M2 today, and that multiple is literally dead on to today's NASDAQ price. So again, folks, we don't know. Ultimately, we have to see what are earnings going to be in the next day. What's the Federal Reserve going to say? They're going to lower by 25 basis points tomorrow on Wednesday. That's interesting as well, and we'll have to see what the markets do. And then we have to see what the Chinese-U.S. Meeting between President Trump and President Xi look like on Thursday. But on a chart and data factor, there's no doubt in my mind that essentially we could be looking at a top in the markets. And I think this is just so amazing, folks. Again, flipping over to this chart here, again, you can't deny that this chart here and the rise of the NASDAQ, again, by the way, look at the vertical. I mean, this is incredible when you look back. I mean, here was like a mini me of the recent move, right? But ultimately, this times 4.65 equals this. And then we flip over to the M2 and we see this times 4.65 is equal to this. That to me is interesting. And if I find it interesting, folks, as always, I bring it to your attention. You guys take what you will from it. I find it fascinating, but my offering to you, all I do is if this video, folks, is intriguing to you, please share it with friends and family that would also find it interesting. That's all I ask, and I'll keep bringing you guys amazing things like this. You guys have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.